I'm Mindy Peterson, and this is Enhanced Life with Music, where we explore the practical ways music transforms everyday life, health, happiness, and beyond. Imagine if there was a pill that alleviated the symptoms of dementia. It allowed patients to communicate again, brought back words, recognition, joy, and also reduced falls and pain, improved rehab and surgical outcomes, was inexpensive, and reduced reliance on antipsychotic meds. We would rush to prescribe it for every person with dementia. That pill already exists, except it isn't in pill form. It is familiar, beloved music. And it's being used every day at certified music and memory organizations around the world. Families are getting their loved ones back, even if just for sacred moments. Music and Memory is a service of the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function, and its director of programming, Justin Russo, is with me today. Welcome to Enhanced Life with Music, Justin.
Thanks so much, Mindy. It's great to be here.
Justin, I first became aware of music and memory probably about 10 years ago when I first saw the documentary Alive Inside. I'll put a link to this documentary in the show notes. Listeners, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and watch it. It's incredibly impactful. It's an award-winning documentary that showcases the work of music and memory and really, truly captures the transforming power of music for people with dementia. I mean, it's heartwarming, but it's also almost eerie to see how some of these people who are virtually unresponsive can literally come alive when they hear music that was impactful and important to them in their youth. So music and memory has been on my radar for a while, and I thought this would be an especially timely season to highlight it for listeners since we're entering the holiday season when so much familiar music will be playing, love it or hate it, and people are likely to be gathering with family and loved ones. So starting out, can you give listeners just a basic understanding of what music and memory is and how the program works?
Sure. So, Music and Memory started about 2010 with this understanding that the music we love the most is embedded in both our conscious and unconscious brains. And in fact, we take that music with us throughout our entire lives. Now, as amazing as that idea is on its own, it's even more amazing when the functioning of the brain begins to deteriorate, as it normally happens during the aging process, but especially for people living with dementia and other types of physical and cognitive loss. This is amazing because for those people, you can use those very same favorite songs to stimulate cognition, to stimulate the brain, allowing them to converse and socialize, sometimes remember family members' names, and to just have more access to themselves. So, Music and Memory really began around this idea of offering this as a tool in senior care.
And you offer this in the form of, I think it started out as iPods, but I don't know if
It
iPods are being used
did.
anymore. So it's personal playlists that are created individually for people in various facilities or at home. And explain a little bit more about how it works.
Sure. So we train healthcare staff and now communities hub staff as well to use personalized music, favorite music playlists, um, to support quality of life for seniors in residential care or receiving care at home. And what we found is that if you play someone their favorite songs, again, these are their favorite songs from their formative years, roughly ages 12 to 25, you can really bring them back, and it's an amazing process to see. And of course, if you have seen Alive Inside, and I thank you for throwing that out there,
Oh,
we definitely
yeah.
definitely recommend watching the movie. Um,
Yeah. You never forget what you see once
no,
you watch that.
you really don't. It's really amazing. And we continue to show clips from Alive Inside in our training when we work with staff because it really showcases what outcomes you can achieve when you offer someone their favorite music. And it's become a wonderful non-pharmacological intervention that you can use to support quality of life. Of course, the effect doesn't last forever when you're supporting someone in that way, but it usually lasts about 45 minutes to an hour, but during that period of time, you can support very specific outcomes. And that's the other part of what we do during our training is we talk about how proactive and consistent application of this music can help someone's nutrition. They help them to maintain a healthy weight, help them to fall asleep, help them to transition between environments. So there are all these outcomes that care staff are always trying to achieve as part of a person's care plan. And music is, as it turns out, is a wonderful vehicle to help them get there.
Love that. And this programming, this training, the resources Music and Memory provides are available for assisted living communities, hospitals, hospices, caregivers at home, any other demographic that you want to make sure we mention that it really takes advantage of these resources.
Well, so we started training nursing homes in the beginning, but since that time, as you said, we've moved on to hospice organizations, end of life care, hospitals now, assisted living, and now community hubs too. Adult day centers are getting certified, and we're also starting to work with libraries, which is really exciting too, supporting patrons in the community with dementia. So, and I think it's a great fit. Libraries are a great place to offer programming for older adults.
Okay, so this is when older adults are coming into the libraries as part of a sort of field trip from their facility, or they're coming in just wandering in from the community
Well, usually
and may not have the support that they need, and so library staff are being trained in some of these techniques?
exactly so. I mean, there are a lot of people aging in place at home who don't yet need the support of a skilled nursing home or assisted living, but who may go with a family caregiver to the library. And yeah,
Mm,
there they can receive a variety of different types of supports from the library. They have a lot of different e-tools, and there's often programming that's specific for older adults at libraries. And so music and
ah.
memory is a great fit there.
Yeah, I could see that being really great. I mean, when my kids were young, I loved going to story time at the library.
Right.
Partly probably because it combined 2 loves of mine, reading and music, like, they usually had some kind of music and activity, like moving with music involved in story time. But I could see how that would be also a really great program for older adults.
We think it's a great fit, and you don't need a dementia diagnosis to receive dementia services at a library too. So it's an amazing fit,
Sure.
and we're excited to move into that area. And as you mentioned, we also train home care staff too. Because for every person with dementia in residential care, there are 3 or 4 more who are aging in place at home with some type of
Mhm.
dementia, and there
Yeah.
there are millions of older adults in the United States alone who would benefit from this.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about why music. Why is music so effective in this way? We know that music memory is one of the last to fade away, which is one reason it is effective in these situations. What is it about personalized music that makes the difference neurologically and emotionally for patients? Can you explain what's happening in the brain when someone with dementia hears a favorite song from their past?
Sure, sure. So there's just something special about our formative years when it comes to the way we interact with music. When we're teens, right, the music we love the most just embeds itself into every single part of our brain.
Mm.
And this has a lot to do with neuroplasticity, or rather, the degree to which our brains can respond to external stimuli. This is at its height, right? So the music we're listening to is really getting in there, and it tends to stay. And this has a lot to do with emotional memory. There's a lot of emotional memory being generated during this period of our lives. And that makes a lot of sense, right? If you think
Sure.
about it, we're kind of coming of age, everything's super important. So the music we're listening to is very important too. And all of us, and studies have shown that all of us predictably return to this music that captured us during our adolescence. I'm certainly one of those people. If you play me anything from the 90s, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but if you play me any 90s music, it's really going to resonate with me. And that's what makes it so important later on in dementia care, because that music is still there. And using the same songs as an outside stimulus, you can connect with the brain and help the person connect with themselves in ways that they won't be able to do on their own. So it's really amazing the way it boosts cognition. And if you've seen any of the clips on our website, or again, if you've seen Alive Inside, you can see how amazing that is to see people come alive and suddenly be able to draw deep from their own experiences, to have that much more access to their own memories. It's really amazing. And the music does that. The music brings it out through these music memories, basically.
A key component of music and memory's effectiveness is that personalized music, but it's use according to evidence-based best practices. Can you explain what some of those best practices are and what caregivers should be aware of to use music safely and effectively? And if there's early signs that a playlist is working or that it needs to be adjusted?
Depending on where someone is in the aging process, the results can vary. If you're working with someone who is very early on in the aging process, who you can have a conversation with about their favorite music, you'll see responses to be more immediate. You'll see tapping fingers, singing along, reminiscing, and when you hear them talking about memories, then you know you've found some of the right music. I was working with someone just yesterday who we played some music from the 50s, and she immediately started talking about listening to the radio with her sisters and how important that was to her. So I knew immediately that that was one of those songs because it triggered a memory for her. And that's how you know you're getting there. But when we talk about evidence based use, we're really more talking about how to use the music for clinical value. So if you're supporting someone in residential care, or at home, if you're trying to help someone maintain a healthy weight, for example, if you use the music proactively, maybe 30 minutes before mealtime, you'll see much better results in
Hmm.
terms of their nutrition. It'll allow them to recognize the food more easily, to chew, and in some cases even swallow for late stage dementia. And it also tends to alleviate some of the anxiety that happens around the eating experience. So, and nutrition studies have shown that when people are listening to their favorite music before meals, they'll actually eat more and do better.
Mm,
So it's pretty amazing in terms
yeah.
of how you can support these specific activities of daily living, or ADLs, as they say in senior care.
Mm.
And another example is transitioning between environments, which is can often be overwhelming for someone with dementia, right? But if you play the music about a half hour before they get into a vehicle, or get ready to go for a walk, they'll be more present. They'll be more able to recognize the caregiver and the care that's being given to them, offered to them. So it makes going to a noisy medical waiting room more manageable for them, right? Because they were in that immersive headphone environment, reliving those memories, and just when they come out, they just have more access to themselves.
Sure. Well, I imagine too, you could sort of supercharge that effect by if you find a song that really works, maybe playing the same song before every meal so that it's also kind of cueing the resident, oh, it's mealtime, or using the same song before transitioning to a different environment so that it kind of cues them to that. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely, and that's the other part of what we teach is we teach the proactive use and the consistent use as part of a care plan. So we believe that if you use the music consistently throughout the day, you can really maximize the impact of the music. It gets better the more you use it. So, and what I mean by consistent use is, for example, if someone sundowns, has instances of afternoon agitation, if you know that they typically sundown around 4 p.m., if you have it in the care plan to offer the music around 3:30 every single day, you can usually avoid that episode entirely.
Wow. One of my favorite ways to enhance my life with music is to play just for fun songs on the piano at the end of the day. My current favorites are ABBA songs and songs from the 80s, like We Are the World. With sheet music direct, I can explore new music, track my favorites, play and download scores anytime from any device. This online treasure trove of digital sheet music is powered by music publisher Hal Leonard and has over 1 million arrangements ready to view, listen to, and download instantly. Prices start at just 99 cents, and include selections for every instrument, genre, and skill level. My family has relied on sheet music direct for years for musical joy and convenience. For an entire musical library at your fingertips, visit sheetmusicdirect.com. Right now, we're mid-November. We're entering that most nostalgic season of the year. And whether you love it or hate it, holiday music is everywhere. So listeners don't always have control over what they're hearing. What do you want listeners to consider specific to this time of year when a lot of times emotions are running high? We don't always have control, like I said, over the music that we're hearing. How can families thoughtfully use music during this season to spark connection rather than, you mentioned the tendency to overstimulate or overwhelm?
I appreciate this question. I come from a large Italian family, so very very loud all the time, hard to be heard, and overwhelming. So if you're there's so much wonderful Christmas music out there, and so many family memories of togetherness are linked to Christmas music. I know that's very true for me. If you play eh, John Denver and the Muppets Christmas Together, if you're familiar, this is going back a ways. Uh, Everyone in my family will turn around and just gather around and just start singing together. It's just an
Aw.
important album for us. But if you're thinking about making a playlist, focus on maybe two or three favorites for each person. Don't go crazy. Don't with filler things that might be good for this aspect of the event or not. I would say just find something that each person would appreciate and have that on your playlist for Christmas. I think that because if you take the time to think about what each person would like, that's part of the gift to them.
Mm.
When we work with seniors to find their favorite music, a process we call becoming a music detective, you're doing just that. You're sitting with them, sampling music, asking questions about their past, in order to solve this musical favorites mystery and really find 15 or so songs that really matter to them, the songs that really trigger memories and light them up. So you can do this with family members too. You can think about the music that matters to them, maybe a specific memory that's meaningful to them, and you can add that song to their playlist.
I have a similar response to Christmas as a season, the music, what you have. I mean, I just have wonderful memories of the holidays. My birthday is around that time, and my mom always did a great job of making my birthday separate from Christmas and making it a distinct holiday. So that whole season just feels like a magical time. But I also recognize there's plenty of people who have the exact opposite response to the holiday season, to Christmas, to music related to that season. They hear it and it triggers the exact opposite response. They have bad memories of that time, and it makes them think of stress and trauma and parents fighting over the kids because the parents are split up and things like that. So what do you want listeners to be aware of if they have a loved one who has some cognitive deficiencies, dementia or something else, and that person becomes more agitated when they hear certain holiday songs?
So this is a question we hear a lot, and I think it's a really good question to answer. This it's often the case, not often, but sometimes the case that when you play someone music, it's not going to trigger a positive memory. It's going to trigger something that was maybe painful in their past, just as you illustrated. In the short term, we do think it's a good idea to stop the song, but in the long term, our experience is that it can often lead towards the positive eventually, because
Oh.
it can be cathartic for that person. I'll give you an example. So I think I was playing music for a group in senior care, and a gentleman I forget the song, but he just stood up and left in the middle of it. And he was very distressed. And so we stopped the song and continued the programming. And then afterwards, when I spoke to him, he was very clear. He said this was my friend's song. We were in the Marines together, and it just reminds me of when he died in the war, and it was just really hard. And the more he talked about it, the more he wanted to listen to the song again. So by the end of the
Oh.
conversation, he had kind of taken back the memory,
Oh.
and And it just ended up being a very positive experience for him in the long
Wow, so
term.
it's kinda like a redemptive power
A little
almost
bit,
of the
yeah.
song. Oh, interesting.
So, in the short term, if music creates like a bad response, definitely try something else in the short term. But it's always worth a conversation to see where that came from if they're comfortable with it.
Interesting. Talk to us a little bit about the economic feasibility of the music and memory approach. I know there was a recent study that came out, kind of a joint effort between AARP and NeuroArts Blueprint Initiative that I found very excited. I know you've referenced it in an article that you wrote that I loved. But talk to us about sort of how much it costs for facilities to implement music and memory. So whether it's the training or the gear, like I said, we're probably not using iPods anymore, but whatever
Right.
whatever we are using now. And how much does that implementation save facilities on average when we're talking about maybe fewer prescriptions, faster recovery time with rehab or surgeries, maybe less volatility with the sundowning or other times and experiences, things like that. And of course, this is completely not taking into effect the immeasurable value of the quality of life increase that we're getting from this approach. But talk to us a little bit about the economics of this.
So the economic analysis that you're referencing was published by the NeuroArts Blueprint, sponsored by AARP, and this, I think, really for the first time, they talk about ROI of music engagement and music therapy. And we've known for a long time that this is true, but that there is a return on investment for this type of work. You see it not only in the outcomes that you talked about, right, the downstream effects on hospitalization and rehab and falls and things like that. But you also see it in staff retention. You also see it when staff stick around, when the
Yeah,
burnout rate drops, because it turns out that offering music in this way is just as beneficial for them. And that's
sure.
that's really something we love talking about too, because what it tends to happen, especially with music and memory programs, is that it can really shift and create these paradigm shifts within the organization and really boost the culture, and give everyone just much more of satisfaction in terms of working there. It gives them a
Oh,
purpose.
sure.
Senior care staff have tough jobs, right?
Hmm.
Trying to connect with people that are difficult to connect with. And this is one of those tools. Music is just one of those tools that really allows them to do that in a very person centered way. So we've known that this return on investment has been there, but to see it now be officiated, if you will, is really meaningful. So I think the analysis cites that for every dollar spent on music therapy or music engagement care, you receive $2.40 in return, which is
Mm,
pretty amazing and great to
right.
see. We were so happy to see that. Music and memory remain
And I think it also allows for an additional 70 cents
right.
per dollar benefit for
For
caregivers.
those reasons, right, exactly. Yeah,
Yes,
so it's really
yeah.
wonderful to see that. We've waited a long time for that. Music and memory, in terms of the tools that are out there, is definitely one of the more affordable. Our training for unlimited staff is $1,000, and that's we'll train 100 staff for that amount, so it's very
Mm.
affordable. And for just 1 to 5 staff, I think it scales down to $600 for the training. And the equipment is very affordable too. You mentioned the iPod. Cla- cla- the iPod series was discontinued in 2019, but many certified music and memory certified organizations continue to use older devices. And there's now a large community of donors who just continually send us their used devices, and then we just send them out to homes in need.
Ah,
But MP3 players are still very popular. But now we're seeing a lot more streaming players and even voice activated devices, which is pretty exciting.
yeah.
There's no easier way to make a playlist than just asking Alexa to do it for you.
Yeah. Definitely. One other statistic I'll just throw out there too while we're on this topic is there's a really great short film, I think on your website. It's called Healing with Harmony. It takes place at NYC Health Plus Hospitals Kohler. Is that how you pronounce
Right.
the
Kohler
Okay.
Hospital.
So it's the largest long-term care facility in the system. And the system is the largest municipal healthcare system in the US. And according to that film, since they adopted music and memory, their use of antipsychotic meds declined by 12%. And there had been no fights or falls. So that's a pretty amazing statistic that I just wanted to make sure I mentioned.
Well, and for anyone who watches the video, you'll see how happy the staff are too. They're all dancing together and
Yes.
just having a great time. And those results, the 12% drop in antipsychotic medication, that's consistent with most music and memory certified organizations. There was a large study done in California in 2020. I think it was over 41 residents in about 250 California nursing homes, and they found the same results: a drop in antipsychotic and anti-anxiety medication by about 15 to 20%. Just,
Wow.
I think a 12% drop in reported chronic pain. And get this, a 20% drop in distressed behaviors. 20%,
Ah,
which is amazing when
wow.
you consider how easily these situations could compound into a fight or a fall. So if you can get ahead of that distress, it can be very impactful, not just for
Yeah.
the participant, but for quality of care at the organization.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure part of that compounding effect is the fact that when people are on these antipsychotic meds, those meds do have side effects. Unlike the music that they're listening to, those do have side effects. And so if you're able to reduce your meds or even eliminate the need for them with certain patients, you're getting rid of all those side effects as well.
I couldn't agree more. And, I'm putting on my advocacy hat here a little bit. We really think that this is a wonderful non pharmacological alternative to those medications, which are continue to be overprescribed and do have their own set of side effects, which often can be detrimental. We also see a lot of people who really benefit from the music in a lot of different ways. And it can really just if nothing else, it'll put a smile on someone's face.
Oh, for sure.
As we always say, too, it's really the gift that gives twice because not only are you supporting all these different outcomes, you're providing an alternative to medication, but you've taken the time to get to know someone and the music that really makes them who
Mm,
they are. That's pretty
mm.
special.
Yeah. Well, you may be introducing yourself to some new music that you weren't familiar with
Right, right.
or a new genre.
So, part of what we believe is to really make this a universal part of healthcare. That's our mission. We really want to see music be talked about in care plans and care plan meetings. Have we tried music with this person yet? We know it can't replace traditional medication, but we want healthcare staff to at least recognize it enough to try it first because it might be all you need.
Yeah,
Now, for caregivers at home, I do want to stress that, if you do see unwanted behaviors, it's important to understand the source of those behaviors. Music and memory is great for mild chronic pain because it helps to take them away to distract them from the pain. But it's usually helpful to know the source of the pain before you do that. If someone has agitational wandering or they're living with chronic pain, and you need to really know the source before applying the solution. So before using music, understand why they're in pain because music might not always be the best way to
sure.
handle the situation. I always like to offer that.
Absolutely. Good reminder. Before we totally leave that topic of that short film, Healing with Harmony, I want to mention just one quote that really caught my attention. I think it was a doctor that they were quoting who was being filmed. And he said, music is a wonderful vehicle to get in touch with a person's humanity.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, wow, what a great way to phrase that. Loved that. Tell us about some of the resources that are available on Music and Memory site. I know there's a lot on there. There's an interactive map where people can find certified locations near you. There's over 5,800 worldwide. There's really cool link to get started creating a personalized playlist for a loved one at home. There's ways to get involved, whether it's volunteering your time, donating equipment, which I imagine includes some of those MP3 players, contributing funds. But tell us about some of the other resources that you want listeners to know about that are available on your site.
So volunteers really play a vital role at Music and Memory, not just in supporting our certified organizations, but often bringing news of music and memory to healthcare sites. And historically, volunteers have really helped us spread across the country. You mentioned we're now in 5,800 sites across the U.S. We're in every state. 29 states have made music and memory part of policy, thanks to their efforts.
Excellent.
Yeah. Wisconsin in 2015 had every single one of its nursing homes certified. Texas has certified over 1,000 organizations, and they're still
Wow.
going. And Texas, actually, shout out to Texas, they've dropped their antipsychotic rate by 58% in the last 10 years
Over
as a result of
in the last how many years?
over the last 10 years as a result of using music memory and programs like it. So
Wow.
it can really have an impact. And, volunteers play a role. And if anyone's interested in volunteering, just come onto our website, check out the map that you mentioned, and try and find an organization near you that maybe you could volunteer at, helping to create personalized playlists for an older adult, or maybe collecting gently used iPods or other MP3 players for their program. There are just a lot of ways to get involved. You mentioned our free playlist guide. If nothing else, just go onto the website and download that guide, and share it with someone you love, especially for the holidays. If you're going to be meeting with a grandparent or an older parent, it's a wonderful way to get closer to that person, especially during the holidays. And it's
Yeah,
totally
that could be
free.
a great activity to do and just great conversation starter.
Absolutely. And it offers tips for how to support different outcomes throughout the day and how to really maximize the use of the playlist. So definitely check that out at musicandmemory.org if you get a chance.
I think you mentioned too that you have a new caregiver resource and maybe some short videos. Can you just tell listeners a little bit about that?
Sure, we've got two new videos that are up on our YouTube. The first is selecting music for your music and memory program, which is useful for anybody who's just interested in what equipment might be better for their loved one. Often it's the case that headphones can cause distress for older adults. Sometimes the wires can be frustrating, or they just aren't comfortable. They don't recognize the headphones and they don't want to wear them. So, we offer some advice for how to work with a Bluetooth speaker and also how to really understand the different types of hearing loss that you may be experiencing when attempting to offer the music. So, for anyone interested in that, just check that out on our social media. We've also got a brand new video, 5 outcomes that you can achieve using a personalized music playlist. I've talked about one or two of them, but we cover, 5 concrete steps that you can take to support someone with dementia with a personalized music playlist. So if you have a chance, definitely check that out on our website.
Excellent. Well, there are so many stories we've already alluded to that are featured on the Alive Inside film, on that Healing with Harmony, on Music and Memories website. Do you have a personal favorite story about the power of music transforming someone's life, whether it's related to the holidays or not?
I do. I wanted to mention that Chevrolet actually put out a commercial last year,
Mm.
that I think is really great. And if you have, and for the folks listening, if you haven't, go into YouTube and Google for Chevy Christmas commercial. It's a really powerful, well written commercial. They did a good job. It shares the story of an older adult who's being supported by her young granddaughter, and they just go for a drive around, of course, in an old Chevy, and listen
Mm.
to John Denver,
Oh.
and she sort of, the music sort of triggers her cognition, and by the end of the ride she's able to recognize her husband, and they have a wonderful Christmas together. So that's
Aw.
not my story, but I wanted to share that. um,
Yeah, I'll look for that and see if I can
Definitely
find it.
great.
If I do, I'll put it in the show notes.
So I have a memory, that's really special to me. So when I was 15, I was allowed to go to the Dutchess County Fair in upstate New York for the first time, alone. Now, this was a big deal, right? Uh, so I just have this fond memory of walking into the fairgrounds through the gates in this sea of teenagers, right, at night, just with the lights above us, and we could hear the noise of the rides in the distance and the games, and just all of us flooding in together and walking towards the rides. I saw in the distance this Viking ship swinging back and forth. Remember that ride?
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and above it all was playing Guns N' Roses, "Sweet Child of Mine." Right? I know, funny choice, but um, if you, I'll never forget that. And if you play me that song now, I'm right back there. I'm 15 again. It's 1990. I'm walking in through those gates feeling like my life is opening up, for the first time. Because it was really one of the first things I was allowed to do by myself. And the nice thing about it is I can just return to that memory anytime I want. I know where to find it. Just listen to some Guns N' Roses.
Thank you so much to Justin for joining us today and for telling me about that Chevy ad. Oh my goodness, I'm not a big crier, but that Chevy ad made me cry. It is so touching. The YouTube video is in the show notes. Do yourself a favor by watching it. That will definitely get you into the true spirit of the season like nothing else. Thanks also to Justin and the Music and Memory team and all those caregivers out there who are transforming dementia care and reclaiming humanity. Love that phrase, through the power of music. As always, there are tons of links in the show notes to all the resources we discussed. You can watch the Alive Inside film, find a music and memory facility in your area. There are over 5,800 worldwide. Use their tool to create a personalized playlist and find other caregiver resources. There are also links to related episodes and all episodes related to science and health. All Enhanced Life with Music episodes are evergreen, so be sure to check out the back catalog for more ways that music can make your life better. You can always connect with me on email, mindy@mpetersonmusic.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, or LinkedIn, and by signing up for my monthly e-newsletter. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing the show. It is one of the best ways to help us reach new listeners and spread the transforming power of music in everyday life. Until next time, may your life be enhanced with music.